Oh,
Oh, that was quick. You surprised me. Oh, there we go. Happy New Year. Walking backwards. There we go. Wash them off. Get him the hell out of here. Oh, there she is. Ah!
okay. Thank you very much for the cheering from behind the scenes. I appreciate that. Good morning, Timothy, once again.
I hope my microphone isn't on.
Oh, it was. Okay, it was on. And yeah, it was really nice to hear
Happy
you.
New Year, Maya.
Happy New Year to you too, Timothy, and to everybody who is listening to us in Clubhouse or watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube, maybe Facebook as well. It's a pleasure to have you with us again, Timothy. And everybody who is listening, this is our 152nd episode, and we are heading to our third year.
Haha, you froze.
But I'm not going. Did I? Oh, no. Can you see me still?
Yes, I can. I'm
Okay,
still full
good.
of terror.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Anyway, so thank you very much. And Timothy, I'm not going to keep anybody waiting anymore. So I'll give you the mic.
Great.
And yes, please tell us what happened during the past week in Japanese politics. Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Maya. And thank you, everybody who is in the audience. I really appreciate it. 52 weeks consecutively served last year. We were here with you every Sunday morning, every goddamn Sunday morning, 8:20. Thank you very much for tuning in, for telling your friends about us, and for hitting like and share. Last week I asked you, since we don't have analytics that identify, we have analytics that identify countries and participants, but nobody, no real identifying markers unless you tell us, I appreciate it, or I signed on, or you hit like, or something like that. And so I asked you last week, please just, if you have any appreciation, please hit like. Please let us know that you're out there and where you're from. And I was really richly rewarded because a lot of people from Brazil, from Germany, from all over the United States reacted and said, thank you very much. It's a great show. Please change the main speaker, but Maya's okay, and stuff like that. So thank you for your ribbing. Thank you for, your support. And this last week, we also provided a synopsis with a little bit of a tweak on it, you might have noticed. The synopsis was all of the bullet points of what we talked about, plus as many of the questions as I could remember. We posted what those questions were without going too much into the answers. And so that's a new feature. And as you might have noticed, Maya has also put up a new kind of breaking news kind of promo for this briefing, 3 years strong. This is really significant, and I really appreciate it. I don't want to go on too long about it, but please continue to support us. If you like it, please share. Share is really important for the proliferation value of our SEO. So thank you very much for that. So let me get right into what's happened over the last 7 days, the first week of the new year. Happy 2024, by the way, and thank you again. So we started off with a bang. Today is the 7th. So last week it was the last show of the year, and boy, things happened really quickly. So the news has been dominated for everybody that's in this briefing. You already know this tremendous 7.4 earthquake on the Noto Peninsula on the Sea of Japan devastated that area, and it's unfortunate. Not so many deaths, and we're grateful for that, but it's probably exceeded 100 now. They're still trying to dig people out, and the rescue efforts continue. The tsunami that was widely predicted as soon as the earthquake hit did not really materialize. It wasn't 4 meters as it was once predicted soon after the quake, but it hit very quickly within 3 minutes of the earthquake that we felt here in Tokyo. My house actually shook very considerably. We felt the big one, and then the other ones we didn't feel as much. The less than 7 on the magnitude scale that they use here in Japan, we don't feel here in Tokyo. But the first one we did feel, and it shook the whole house. So our prayers and our thoughts go to the people of Ishikawa and the surrounding prefectures. I know it's going to be very hard. They were just beginning to gear up for a tourism push. They were looking forward to that. But, I spend a lot of time in Chiba where the good ship Santana is docked. And that little district there was rocked by a typhoon 8 years ago, and it's still suffering from it. So I understand that the area in Ishikawa will be really struggling to right itself. Streets are buckled, highways are buckled, landslides, houses collapse. So we really hope that they get out of this, as quickly as possible. And the Japanese government is spending a lot of effort on that. The prime minister was on the horn. He was in front of the lights very quickly after the earthquake happened, as you would expect. And he's put a lot of effort into that. There was an accident in Haneda Airport the next day. A relief flight from the Coast Guard carrying 6 people crashed into a JAL airliner. 367 people were rescued, 12 crew members. They all survived that devastating crash. There's a lot of worldwide news going on about how miraculous that was. Unfortunately, in the Coast Guard plane, 5 of the 6 people on the plane perished. The pilot survived. He's in serious condition, but he is conscious. So it's a real devastation for kicking off 2024, and I hope this is not a sign of things to come. But there are lots of other things going on, although the news was really dominated by these 2 really outrageous, outstanding news features, the earthquake and then the accident at Haneda. But other things are continuing to go on now, and if you've been watching this program, then Japanese politics is in flux because of this scandal that's going on with how party funds were handled within the LDP, in particular with the Abe faction. So what's happened since, everybody understands Japan basically closes down on December 31st, and they stay in close down mode for maybe 4 or 5 days. But the public prosecutor's office has not been taking a vacation. They've got more than 100 public prosecutors from all over Japan focusing on this issue, in particular on the Abe faction, which seems to be the main culprit, the main violator of the Public Campaign Funding Control Act. The Abe faction, with 99 members, as you know, is the largest of the 6 political factions that make up the LDP. There's factions that make up, and then there's maybe 23% who are independents. 23 members of the LDP who are independent, don't belong to a political faction. And these guys, it seems as if their star is finally rising because they're becoming sought after. The prime minister, as this scandal began to break, initially just cleared house. He had his chief cabinet secretary, Mr. Matsuno, resign immediately. That's his chief cabinet secretary, one of the most powerful positions and a leadership position leading up to the prime minister. Almost every chief cabinet secretary has gone on to become prime minister. So this was a heavy blow to this individual personally, but also to the Abe faction. He was asked to resign, which he did. And then in very quick succession, almost everybody who was in the Abe faction inside the government, either at the cabinet level, the vice cabinet, ministerial level, or even within the LDP, is out. And then over the last 7 days, investigations have continued. Most remarkably, they've had investigations with a lot of the bigwigs within the Abe faction. And if you're the public prosecutor, you want to save the best ones for the last, the ones that you really are interested in. You try and build your case, you get the information, you attack the weaker ones first, because you really want some of the culprits. So the fact that Mr. Matsuno went out early doesn't really implicate that strategy. It's more like the prime minister was just like, let's address this quickly. I need to show leadership. I need to show the public that I am decisive about clearing up this issue. So maybe that was his first knee-jerk reaction, but it has gone on, and hopefully people will perceive what the prime minister is doing. Although in the last week or so, it's just talk about, I intend to, as soon as the diet comes in, we're going to be reviewing the current laws, and perhaps we need to change some of that kind of mealy-mouth talk about addressing this. But in the meantime, the public prosecutor's office went after Mr. Nishimura, who was the METI minister, very powerful figure, also within the Abe faction, one of the top people in the leadership in the committee that is guiding the Abe faction. And they went after him strong this last week. When Mr. Matsuno became chief cabinet secretary, Mr. Nishimura took over his position. He was previously the secretary general within the Abe faction. So that's a big deal. It's a pretty high leadership position, but it is also identified as the person who is in charge of, funneling the funds, watching the economics of running the faction and that sort of thing. And so going after Mr. Nishimura, who is under a lot of pressure these days, there's also a sexual scandal that's going on. Bunshun is on his tail about, hiring this girl who had no political experience as his political secretary, his policy secretary, and then going to San Francisco for the big ASEAN maybe 6 weeks ago, and bringing her with him, having her stay in an adjoining room. There's a lot of stuff going on with him. And he was actually a very suave, good-looking potential candidate for prime minister before all of this broke up. So his star is really crashing hard, and there's more to come out of that. At the same time that the public prosecutor's office was questioning Mr. Nishimura, they also were questioning Hakubun Shimomura. So Hakubun Shimomura is an important figure in this whole scheme because, number one, he was he was probably closest to Mr. Abe when Mr. Abe was alive. He was the education secretary, he's maybe 70 years old, well-liked, a Tokyo politician. And when Mr. Abe died and they were trying to coalesce their forces, they came up with this group of 5, perhaps 6, and Mr. Shimomura was part of that and then ejected. He was kicked out of that group, and that's got to sting. And the reasoning behind that, they could have picked any reasoning, but the reasoning behind that was because of his involvement with the Unification Church. But that same criticism could be said for any one of the members who were also in the leadership faction. So he was strategically selected and then booted out. And then, very interestingly, keep this in the back of your mind, very interestingly, this issue came up with the political funds scandal. And originally it came out of a researcher in Kobe, a university professor, who was doing an investigation and an analysis of funds coming into the faction and funds going out and how much they reported. This is all public knowledge. And he came up with this idea or this evidence, and he went to the public prosecutor's office and he filed a criminal complaint. So this is very mysterious coming out of Kobe. How could somebody have that much information and the gist of what's going on politically in the background, identifying in particular the Abe faction? And you've got Mr. Shimomura that's kind of in the background, licking his wounds, wondering why these guys who were his best friends previously now are fighting among themselves over the spoils of the assassination of his good friend, Mr. Abe. So there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of bad blood going on in politics today, particularly within the Abe faction, but other people are trying to cover their bases. You know, we just emerged from the Unification Church scandal where Mr. Abe was assassinated by a disgruntled person whose mother was a member of the Unification Church. She had given all of his inheritance to the Unification Church. He was searching for some way to relieve this resentment that he had. And after a couple of attempts on different people, he finally identified the prime minister, who he shot with a handmade gun while on the campaign trail the day before the election was to occur 2 years ago. Politics has been in turmoil ever since then because the Abe faction is the largest of all the political factions that make up the LDP. So the shakeout now, there have been a couple of big heavyweights within the Abe faction who have been identified. Their names are being circulated quietly. That probably tomorrow is a national holiday. Tomorrow is coming of age day, as you probably all know. So it's a national holiday. On Monday, perhaps there might be some action, but on Tuesday you can anticipate probably a little bit of action from the public prosecutor's office. There is a little bit of scuttlebutt going on that arrests will be made. So in the last month or so, there's been 2 members of the Diet who have been arrested. One of them as a component of the political funds scandal, and the other one as a component of a different scandal also involving political funds, a bribery charge, actually. So we can anticipate some more of these shoes falling on the floor again. And this will continue for the first 3 weeks of this month. The Diet will go back into session on the 26th of this month, which is interestingly the last day that the Prime Minister could effectively initiate the Diet for its 150th day constitutionally mandated Diet session. So in the Constitution, it says the Diet shall be held for 150 days on an annual basis, and the Diet session must start within January. So living up to these dictates from the Japanese Constitution, the Prime Minister selected Friday the 26th as the day that he would launch the new Diet. So the Emperor will cross the moat. He'll come over. Everybody will be in their best attire, their tuxedos and that sort of thing, and they will open the Diet on a Friday. So it's expected to be a short session, then break for the weekend, and then things will start really on fire the following Monday. So that gives us a little bit of time because we will report to you on that Sunday, the 28th, on what happened within the Diet and what it portends. So between now and then, the public prosecutor's office has a free rein. They can arrest members of the Diet. They can force them to stand under questioning with bright lights shining in their eyes. They can spend as much time as they want. They don't have to be nice about it. But once the Diet starts on the 26th, it's hands off. The public prosecutor's office, members of the Diet have constitutional immunity. They cannot be touched. They can't be arrested. If they're speeding in their car, the cops can't touch them. But particularly in this case, with the public prosecutor's office hot on their tails, they cannot arrest them. And that's for 150 days. That will be sometime in the late spring when that Diet session finishes. So the nighttime fires are burning in the public prosecutor's office, and they are coming in hard. They're coming in hard, particularly with the Abe faction, obviously because it's the largest faction. And it turns out that this kickback scandal. So if for those of you who are not quite up to speed on it, the scandal includes having these political parties, of which I go to frequently on a weekly basis. There's these kind of political fundraising parties, breakfasts, lunches, dinners, all the time. And they obligated members within their faction to sell a certain amount of tickets. And if you exceeded the amount of those tickets, then the faction would kick back some of that money to you. And one of the unsaid things about this little scheme that they had working was that if you don't meet that number, you have to come up with that obligation that you had. So if you were obligated to come up with 100 tickets and you only came up with 95, you've got to cover that amount. So it's a double-edged sword. You get the benefit if you exceed it, but if you don't exceed it, you need to come up to speed with that because your faction friends are anticipating that. So one of the critical features of this is that when Mr. Abe was alive, there was a little bit of heat on him, not just the scandals with Sakura Mirukai or the school scandal in Osaka, but lots of other things. So he put a hiatus on this funding and this kickback. But once he was assassinated, this group that coalesced to lead the faction was chafing at the fact that they weren't getting these funds generated anymore, even though the Abe faction, like all factions, was having these political parties on a weekly basis, generating a lot of money. So this group of five went back and said, look, that decision by Mr. Abe, let's rethink it, let's reinitiate it. And everybody in the Abe faction was happy about that. And the other factions also seen that because this was a LDP decision. The other faction seen that said, well, if the Abe faction is going to be doing that, we can't be left out because generating these funds, this pocket money that we have, helps facilitate our building our base of LDP members and political faction members, and also people who are ascribing to my politics, my individual politics. So it was the grist that was kind of feeding the mill. So the Abe faction was identified as the chief violator of it, in particular this group that formed after Mr. Abe passed away. The second most scrutinized group is the Nikai faction. So the reason why the Nikai faction is important is because Mr. Nikai, during the entire administration of Mr. Abe, Mr. Nikai was the chief cabinet secretary. I'm sorry, the secretary general of the LDP. And so what political funds were being done then and how things were handled pretty much fell under Mr. Nikai. So even though his faction at 38 members is maybe the fifth largest faction among all of the six factions that make up the LDP, he had tremendous political sway and he ruled things with an iron fist. Right now, I think he's 78 years old. He's limping. He's not in good health. But the public prosecutor's office went after him with a vengeance this last week too. So there are expected to be repercussions hitting the Abe faction and the Nikai faction this week. So keep your eye out for that. But also there's other movement going on, and I think that the public prosecutor's office is honing in particular on the Abe faction because they kind of were behind this. They started this, and actually when they question the people, the accountants, the diet secretaries, the factional administrators and that sort of thing, it actually harkens back earlier to Mr. Mori, who was prime minister, 3 prime ministers before Mr. Abe became prime minister. He took over the Abe faction in a kind of a mysterious way. He became the leader of the Abe faction. It was called the Mori faction for quite a long time, almost 8 years. He was the leader of the Abe faction. He retired from politics, and then, as you know, he became the chairman of the Olympic Committee, the Japan Olympic Committee, and that's a big deal. And how in the hell did that happen? And he was able to do that, and then political funds, bribery, and that sort of thing became evident. He was criticized for inappropriate touching of some female staff, and he was forced to resign before the Olympics even started. So there's a lot of stuff with Mr. Mori. A lot of people have suspected that for a long period of time, and they thought that the prestige of the Fukuda Seiwakai actually diminished under his leadership because the implications are that he's not really a clean politician. So there's a lot going on there and a lot more to come out of it. And I could go on, but I think what I'll do is I'll just move on because we can handle this in the Q&A portion as well. And I don't want to spend way too much time over it. But over the last 5 weeks, the opposition party has also coalesced their forces, seeing this opportunity. So 5 of the opposition parties, led by the Constitutional Democratic Party, Ishin, the Democratic Party for the People, the Communist Party, and the Reiwa Shinsengumi have decided, at least through their parliamentary affairs chiefs, to collaborate on certain policy issues that are coming up in the Diet once it starts on January 26th. So it looks like a frontal assault is being formed there, as you would think. They're just waiting for this kind of opportunity. It has come up. There is a little bit of doubt that they can pull it together. The Constitutional Democratic Party does seem to lack real aggressive leadership in order to pull these forces together. But you can expect that things are going to be very contentious in this new Diet session. They must pass the budget by the last day of March. It's a tremendous budget. The numbers were all provided by the various ministries to the cabinet. The cabinet closed the year with the submission of this request of the various ministries and the budget proposal that they will submit to the Diet for questioning over the next 3 months. So that's going to dominate internal politics within the Diet. But you've got these other things that are going on that are going to hamper things. It's possible there could be a no confidence motion. The prime minister really is kind of bleeding in the water. His numbers are exceedingly low, and I mean they're lower than the LDP has been since they lost power in 15 years ago. So there's a lot of fireworks that I think we can anticipate there. There are other things that are going on too that impact Japanese politics. I don't know kind of where to start. There's a lot of South Korean news that's going on too. But let's just hit that first of all, because parliamentary elections in South Korea are in April. And as you know, President Yoon survived and became president of South Korea just by the skin of his teeth. And his main opposition contender is still the leader of the opposition. He's campaigning so that the parliamentary elections are going to sway the number of people in his party, so that Mr. Yoon is even further hampered and then diminished as a leader, so that when it comes time to select the president of South Korea once again, he's not going to lose this time. He was attacked this last week in a campaign. It wasn't really a political campaign. It was to open a new airport in Busan. He was attacked. Somebody in the crowd lunged at him, got him right in the neck with a knife. It was really visceral. You could see it on TV. His attack. He didn't die. He survived. He's in the hospital now. But this generates more animosity within the very fractious South Korean politics, and it's not the only thing that happens there that is going to impact Japan-South Korea relations, which are very, very important to the United States and for building this coalition against a potential Chinese move on Taiwan, or maybe even a Russian move on the Sakhalin Islands or something else. So the game is kind of open at this point. South Korea is in exercises with the United States this last week. And in opposition to that, the North Koreans fired 200 artillery shells into the water, not crossing into the exclusive economic zone of South Korea, but in protest to that. And then the South Koreans fired 400 in a kind of retaliatory mark. Nothing hit land. It was all fired into the water. It's a kind of show of force. And so there's a little bit of escalation that's going on there. Kim Jong-un has told his people to prepare for war. There is a war that's coming. It has been identified that missiles manufactured in North Korea are being used in Ukraine. So there's a lot of ratcheting up that's going on there. It's very, very dangerous. The South Korean Supreme Court upheld a lower court hearing. This is also going to sting President Yoon, and said, yes, not only did Mitsubishi Heavy Metals violate the labor standards of the workers during the colonial period, but they must pay now. And it's not just them, it is also Hitachi. Hitachi Zosen has also been identified. So initially it was two companies, Mitsubishi Heavy and Nihon Steel, and now it's also Hitachi Zosen came up, and they're found guilty, and they must pay between $38,000 and $100,000 to the workers who were identified as having worked under slave-like conditions during the colonial period. So the big fight here is that Japan's stance is those issues were settled during the peace treaty between the United States and all of the allies, including South Korea. And the Japanese government is not necessarily responsible for that. And the Supreme Court held that might be holding true for sovereign immunity for the country, and maybe the treaties did take care of that in reparations, but these are private companies and they must pay. And so this has always been a bone of contention between between Japan and South Korea. And now the Supreme Court has certified that, and that's going to generate further cases, further lawsuits among workers who have been abused by the process during the colonial period. This is 70 years ago. So this is a real bone of contention to make relations between Japan and South Korea even better. So it's another one of those things you just don't want to hear. What else is going on in South Korea? That's it for South Korea. The other thing that's going on that's pretty shocking is Daihatsu, a automobile manufacturer producing small cars, the small trucks, mini cars, and that sort of thing for Toyota. So Daihatsu is a 100% owned subsidiary of Toyota and handles most of their small car manufacturing. They have been identified. They've been the public prosecutor's office, the Japanese government has identified them as violating their safety tests that have been submitted to the government for the last 15 years. And so they've stopped production of all of the plants in Daihatsu in Japan. So they're not producing any cars now. They will continue to be shut down throughout all of January. This is a big deal. It impacts 8,000 suppliers, feeders into Daihatsu, and 9,000 employees. Daihatsu was producing about 4,000 of these cars a day, 870,000 in 2023, and the investigations has shown that the main violation here are airbags that have been installed because of safety tests. This airbags that they have used in their safety tests are not apparently the same safety bags that they use in production. That has been identified. And this will impact Toyota global sales about 4% going forward. So it looks like Daihatsu has announced that it will continue to pay its 9,000 employees as they have been shut down. Maybe they'll be sweeping floors or taking care of machinery. And they will be compensating the 8,000 suppliers who are now sitting on production, and they don't have any, the supply line has basically shut down. So this is a pretty big deal. Something like this happening for a major company, Daihatsu, also in a major industry. The automobile industry is the engine of growth and sustenance for the Japanese economy. We've gone into that one before. So that is a big deal, and we're just seeing the beginnings of that. So to keep your ears out for that. Let me see what else we've got. We've got Sewa Kai. Looks like that's it, Maya. I think I'm out of time too. But we'll open it up for Q&A. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for contributing and for participating. I will produce the synopsis once again before this week is out and include some of the excellent questions that we get on that. If you get this and you're not reading or you're not watching the briefing and your interest is tickled by some of the questions that are initiated, you can review this briefing on YouTube. Maya hosts it on YouTube as well. It's available on LinkedIn for what, Maya, maybe a couple of days, a week or so? Yeah, your mic is off.
Okay, the live stream stays on YouTube for quite a while, actually. So if you're interested in YouTube and also LinkedIn as well. So if you have missed some of the points because of multitasking or doing anything else, so you can go back there and have a look at them, watch them from the beginning till the end. And yes, so Timothy, before we continue with the questions and answers, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes,
Kamakura.
Kamakura, yes. I wanted once again to let our listeners and viewers know that we're having an event. It is a crossover event with YCAPS and Japan Expert Insights, which is going to take place in Kamakura. It is called Kamakura Gozan Zen Temple Walk. It is organized by Richard Walton, who is with us in Clubhouse. So, Richard, if you would like to come up and say a few words about the walk, please let me know. I'm inviting you on stage, so what you have to do is just accept the invitation there.
Don't do it, Richard. Don't do it.
Sorry,
Richard.
I'm okay. Yes, I shared also the registration link in Clubhouse. If you're interested and you're on LinkedIn, we have the link on LinkedIn as well. And we also have quite a few people who have signed up already. Thank you very much for that, for doing that. This is an event which is designed to be also a networking event. So if you would like to expand your business network in Japan, we welcome you to do that and encourage you actually to do that on the 27th of January. Okay, and I think that I cannot see Richard now. Hopefully he will come. Let's see.
Richard is wise.
Okay, when he comes back to Clubhouse, then hopefully we'll hear him tell us about the walk. And yes, okay, so on LinkedIn, Timothy, we had a comment from, just a moment, let me go there and get it. Okay, from Masatoshi Shoji. So he says, thanks for sharing the news about the political scandal in English. I know the story well in Japanese. The English is very much appreciated. I hope more people in the world will know what's going on in Japan. By the way, concerning the Noto Peninsula earthquake, I strongly believe the government should use more sea routes. Together with the US Army, ships or hovercraft will carry a lot more than other transportation tools at this moment because the road conditions are terrible and have to log off. Oh, I have to log off now. Okay, so yes.
Okay.
Right. So hopefully, yes, that's what will happen. We have very little power to influence that, but we know that the government currently and PM Kishida is working on providing relief for the people in the impacted area. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully, the number of victims is not going to increase anymore.
Can I touch on that?
Yes, please.
A second.
Sure.
Shoji-san, thank you very much for the question. So about the U.S. Army or the hovercraft coming in to facilitate, we had the same issue come up during the Fukushima triple disaster. And the United States sent an aircraft carrier very close by to facilitate with that. Many of the soldiers were impacted by nuclear radiation that was generated by the Fukushima explosion. And it was determined that, I personally know some of the soldiers that actually went to Fukushima who were first responders there. And it turns out that the Japanese government is, thank you very much, but, we can kind of handle this. And even though you guys are good and you are speaking some Japanese and you're bringing a lot of supplies and helping us rescue people, it's better, that the Japanese handle this. So the United States had to back off a little bit there. This same thing happened during the Great Kanto earthquake 100 years ago. And the United States came in very, very strongly into the Yokohama harbor and brought lots of ships and lots of materials and supplies. The relationship between Japan and the United States flourished briefly as a consequence of that. And then, it was 100 years ago, so the relations became a little bit more complicated as the Japanese were moving on Manchuria and Korea and not yet China at that point there. But the relationships began to cool, and even though there was a great outpouring from the United States, it didn't really produce the hoped for benefit, or maybe it wasn't very long lasting. So there's a little bit of history here. But yeah, I think the United States has offered, as other countries have offered. And by the way, speaking of offering support and condolences, Kim Jong-un also made the remarkable gesture of sending a message to Mr. Kishida explaining his feelings about, the people of Noto Hanto and Ishikawa and their suffering. And he expressed his condolences. Other countries have done that too. But for the leader of North Korea to make this personal appeal directly to the prime minister is a big deal. No direct communication like that has been attempted for the last 8 years or so. So it's pretty remarkable that happened. So sorry, once again, going on long on that.
That's okay, Timothy. Thank you very much for that. And we have Richard with us. So, Richard, I do invite you to share, to tell us a bit about the walk in Kamakura this time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry. Thank you for inviting me on stage, and thank you. I can see on the list that we already have half the places filled. So if you're interested, please sign up early. Contact Maya. I think we had a great time in Odawara on our last get together. This time in Kamakura, it's a little bit closer to Tokyo, a little bit closer to Yokosuka for some of the people in those areas, and obviously Kamakura is always pretty. I'd always try to offer something a little bit different from the standard, tour that you would have in Kamakura. So this time the theme is the main 5 Gozan, or 5 mountains of Zen in Kamakura, which if you've read any of the Kamakura history, they're famous, and they're not only religiously but also administratively. So we will focus on those, and that'll be a nice majority of the day walk through the pretty northern part of Kita Kamakura, northern Kamakura, have lunch we'll have to split up for lunch in the Kamakura station area, and then a little bit of a walk for the last temple in the afternoon. So you'll be able, it's Saturday, but you'll be able to get plenty of time to get back in the evening. And so that's the idea, and it's a crossover walk with YCAPs. A lot of people who are interested in politics or regional security, a lot of common interest between the two groups. So last time, a lot of people did there was great networking opportunities. So I think we'll have the same thing this time around. So looking forward to seeing all of you who can make it out to Kamakura on the 27th, Saturday. Is that okay?
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Very much looking forward to it. Yes, we'll meet once again at in front of JR Kita Kamakura station at 9 o'clock, and we expect to finish the walk at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And bringing packed lunch is recommended, so that we'll have lunch on the way for maybe 1 hour or 1 hour and 30 minutes. And we're looking forward to seeing you there. please join us. Also, another thing which I would like to share with you here is that yes, the synopsis which Timothy prepares and talked about a little bit earlier, it is shared on the account of Langley Squire on LinkedIn. I will share the link here in Clubhouse in a bit, and also on LinkedIn as well. So if you're interested, please have a look at those, follow them as well, the synopsises. Timothy, there is a question to you on YouTube. So from Chitrali Parashar, she joined our diet tour actually in, I think it was in June. And well, the question is, she says, I joined a little bit late. I'm sorry, but I was wondering if Mr. Langley already talked about the news regarding ex-METI minister Nishimura. Apparently, he resumed the kickbacks after Mr. Abe stopped them. So, your thoughts on these comments, actually?
You got to show up on time.
Okay, yes. All right.
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, we went into some pretty good detail about Nishimura sensei, and also Hakubun Shimomura, and the kind of background that's going on there, and the implications, and why Nishimura is so important and so critical to this investigation, and where he is on this pecking order. So I do know that there will be probably 2 arrests that occur within the next couple of days. I don't think it will be any of the people that we've talked about, Shimomura or Nishimura or Nikai, but that doesn't mean it won't happen eventually. There's only 3 weeks left in this month before the diet starts, so you can anticipate that there will be some furious activity, and that on April 26th, there might be a few by-elections that we haven't announced yet. So to replace the empty seats of people who have been fired or resigned or arrested who belong to the LDP. More to report on that as this story unfolds. But thanks for tuning in, even though it was a little bit late.
Thank you. Yes, and well, we have also Yuka with us in Clubhouse. Yuka, hello to you. Good evening.
Hello to you too. I
Hi,
will
guys.
be in Kamakura in my spirits.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
Okay, you know what? That sounds like I'll be dead. No, I'll be still alive.
Please
okay.
be.
Anyway.
Please.
Okay. So I'm sorry about this noise. Geez. So my question about the sort of disaster response. I'm referring to this January 1st earthquake. And, anytime those things happen, some people always complain about the slowness of government help, right? And so I've seen some, complaints on Twitter. So I went in to see the change in, the Mr. Kishida's approval rating, but I couldn't find the new one. And because the December one was lower, like 17
Very low.
Yep. Very low. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, it cannot be lower than this. But anyway, so question one, do you happen to see the newest approval rating? No. Is that true? Okay. Is that true that some people are saying that, okay, sorry.
So this poll that they have, if it's GG Press is not going to do it weekly. They're going to do it basically monthly. And they have some of the polls staggered. So the Mainichi might do it on the 3rd week of the month, and Gigi does it on the 1st week of the month, and Mainichi does it. So these polls come out on a pretty regular basis. But it is the first of the year, so people are busy eating mikan and mochi and watching TV. Right. So the polls haven't been produced yet, but I expect that his approval will go up a couple of notches as a consequence of his very quick reaction, and also the fact that Mr. Hayashi, the chief cabinet secretary, has been very active, 2 press conferences a day, very responsive, and very very attuned to the situation. So I think the prime minister will get a couple of upticks as a consequence of that.
okay. No, thank you for sharing that because I'm pleased to hear that. But my also second question is, I also heard that some people, suggesting Japan should establish something like FEMA in the States. But I thought that, like a self-defense force is some function as a FEMA to a certain degree. Is that right, to a larger scale?
Oh, I think the Japanese have beaten FEMA hands down. So when there is a disaster here, Japan has great experience in disaster management. And in fact, they're trying to coach and train and educate Ukraine on how they can come up, rebuild their country after all of the hostilities end. So it's something that the Japanese government is particularly good at. So you might, whenever there's a disaster like this, the first things that go are the services, electricity and water and that sort of thing. But the Japanese government has stockpiled in different places in Japan hundreds and thousands of units to generate electricity or to generate clean drinking water. They have these on standby in warehouses that don't meet, the public eye. You don't see them, but they are, strategically placed. And so when it happens, I mean, things go into action very quickly. They understand that, the first responders, there needs to be disaster and rescue going on, but also the highways, the locations. Even now, they're only now coming to some of the places that were really isolated. People in bicycles and in helicopters, even walking on foot, are getting out there. But yeah, the hospital supplies and fresh drinking water, that sort of thing, are always, the main issue. But I think the Japanese government has gotten that pattern down pretty well.
Yes, and
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because the seems like the severity of this earthquake is getting like higher every day. So yeah. Anyway, okay, but thank you. So they are responding quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, there are, and also there are some, well, I think that there are some structural difficulties because the government, basically the central government, is doing whatever they can, but there is a lot of need of immediate help on the ground. And because of that, I think that there is a lot we as communities can do. So one thing, there is, I'm going to promote actually one of our future rooms. So on January the 17th, we're going to have a person who is the founder and leader actually of Bike Scouts in the Philippines, Miles Davis. So Miles has been working as a volunteer in natural disasters or for natural disaster relief for the past maybe 10 years or more, even in the Philippines. And so they have a very rich experience in helping people in disaster hit areas. So basically, he's going to let us know how governments can collaborate with communities so that the relief can be also more efficient and even faster, so it can reach the communities in the disaster areas. So if you can join us, that will be on January the 17th, Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the morning. Please do that as well, because this coming week on January the 10th, we're going to talk about cybersecurity in Japan, when we're going to have Joshua Leong talk about that with us. Well, and yes, okay, yeah, Miles Delphin is not a jazz musician. He is actually a very active volunteer and the leader of the Bike Scouts in the Philippines.
He's a great speaker too. I think this is the second time, right? He was.
Yes. Oh,
he was a great speaker. So I'm looking forward to both of the sessions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Hiroko-san, good morning to you. How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me on the stage, and Happy New Year to everyone. I just want to first say that my prayers and thoughts are with those who have suffered and lost their loved ones and family members
Yeah.
and employees. And my question is going back to the earthquake thing. You mentioned about the letter from North Korean leader that was about the sympathy letter. And you said that this is a great thing, but I'm so skeptical about this, and something must be behind that this action, because we didn't have a great relationship in the last, I don't know how many years.
Right.
So do you think this is a good opportunity that Japan should take advantage of to restore that the relationship with North Korea?
Absolutely. So the Prime Minister has already extended an offering or an opening to North Korea. He said, I would like to meet with Kim Jong-un anytime, any place. I'm available to do that. I would like to begin the process of reapproachment and having communications between our two great countries, and to kind of calm down the tensions. But the tensions are extremely high right now. So yeah, in my view, any movement to go in that direction should be pursued and appreciated. The same thing has gone on between China and the United States. You might have seen. So Biden and the premier of the PRC met in San Francisco, and they agreed, let's have some talks. Let's reinitiate the talks. Maybe have my people talk to your people. And so they did follow up with that. They had Secretary of State and Defense Ministries and Commerce people talking maybe 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't altogether very fruitful. Most of the discussions from the Chinese side was, you guys are doing this and you're saber rattling and you're causing problems in the South China Sea, and why don't you get the hell out of there? This is kind of our sphere of influence, and we're not bothering you in Cuba, so why don't you get the hell out? So there was a lot of that going on, but still it's a dialogue. And maybe after you've vented a little bit, you can get down to a little bit about brass tacks, about, okay, we understand that we have these differences, but there are some places we can collaborate. And how can we, move the supply chain? How can we get medicine supplies back on track? How can we, move technology and reduce the amount of friction between the countries geopolitically, that sort of thing. So I've got to imagine that's good. And yeah, people hide their cards and play chess, and there's always that going on too. But I think everybody's watched Game of Thrones, so what's involved there, and what treachery is like, and what betrayal is like. So, people that do this for a living are well skilled at that. And yeah, I think dialogue is always better than non-dialogue. So I hope. Yeah, I think it was a gesture. It's not just North Korea that offered these condolences, but it is unusual that it came so quickly, and it seemed to be heartfelt, as you would expect. So let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And I have one more question about that. If Maya-san, do we have a time?
Go ahead. Yes, we do.
Yes, we declined that also that Taiwan's earthquake aid. I mean, the Japanese government rejected, and I heard some rumors because that they don't want to have the Japanese government does relationship with China. Is that true, or is just a rumor, or it's just some kind of a political strategy?
No, I haven't followed that news. It hasn't hit my radar. So what you're saying is that offers of assistance, financial assistance, or maybe sniffer dogs or rescue teams being offered by Taiwan was refused by the Japanese government. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't heard that story. And maybe if it's true, yeah, I think the way you have identified it is that, the situation is so delicate. We don't want to exacerbate it by pretending like we have diplomatic relations between Taiwan and Japan, and that we are accepting, if we're going to be accepting sniffer dogs and assistance, it should be coming from the PRC, who we have identified as the one government for the Chinese people. Maybe that's behind it. The situation is particularly delicate because, China is the number one trading partner for Japan. It's the number one trading partner for South Korea and North Korea too. So yeah, it's a delicate tightrope. You want to keep trade and investment streams going. You want to, secure your supply lines. Security, defense security is paramount. So yeah, I think it's a delicate tightrope that the Japanese government is walking. And there is this very astute coalition of China watchers, China experts within the foreign ministry that are pretty much calling the shots there. So yeah, it's a relationship that is, on par with the relationship with the United States that people already acknowledge as one of the most important in the world. But it's not the only one, and things are dynamic. So I don't know. I think probably you don't want to rattle the chains of the giant too much if you can avoid it. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, because that we declined that aid from Taiwan, so we have other countries' aid. So and there are a lot of criticism coming from the public that you take that politics over humans' lives. So
so it's. I completely agree. It's kind of like the criticism the United States offered. We're going to send aid and help with facilitation of, the community and first aid and that sort of thing. And it's not, thank you very much, but please try not to get into our stuff too much. And I think similarly with Taiwan, probably the offer is first aid responders, first responders, sniffer dogs, and that sort of thing. So it does sound kind of cheap that you would decline that. I mean, we can use every team that comes in because it's well supported, it's well funded, they're coming in, they're trying to make their mark and help the rescue efforts. And the Japanese can't do it all themselves. I mean, they're suffering from infrastructure collapse too. But maybe part of it is having that many foreigners clomping around the backwoods of Ishikawa is not such a great thing, and they need to have their own handlers. But like you said, the self-defense forces, like with FEMA, they've got FEMA in the United States. You've got in Japan the self-defense forces, who are that first force to come in, and under the direction of the prime minister, that is one of their primary objectives, because they're not fighting in foreign wars. They're the self-defense forces, and when they're not being used in that capacity, they're being used kind of as the militia, servicing the people and helping with disaster areas. And that's one of the things that they're well trained at. So it's a complicated issue, but yeah, I understand the sentiments. Great question, though.
Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you.
I will look into the story here now that you've raised it. I didn't know much about it, but maybe next week I can touch on it if it's developed further. But I expect there will be other offers that have been made and refused, and some that have been accepted. So it'll probably be more of a story this next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
San. And we have a question in Clubhouse from Camilo Sandoval. So I'll read it to you. Given Kishida's days are numbered, and given no clear unified opposition or alternative government, do you see the days of throwing public funds at problems to alleviate short-term pain as a substitute for structural changes coming to an end after the Kishida's and Abe faction era?
That's a really complicated question. So if I can recapitulate it, the question is, once we get a new prime minister, eventually Mr. Kishida is going to move on and Japan will have a new prime minister. should Japan continue to use public funds to shore up all of the things that the public needs in order to maintain, a kind of a leadership position within the population? And I think it's, on the one hand, it's somewhat unavoidable. They need to come to terms with that. But on the other hand, they've already earmarked all of this money to go to the Injured Fisheries Association because of Fukushima, and because of the defense spending, and because of the growing number of people who are becoming older and bedridden, and the fewer number of people who are supplementing the tax revenues. So it's really, really a difficult thing to do. But yes, if there's a new premier after Mr. Kishida, he needs to come up strong. He needs to be a little bit innovative, and he needs to have the public supporting him, because the LDP, if they don't pull this rabbit out of a hat, it's just going to be a matter of time before the opposition party begins to coalesce their forces. And in light of the distrust and the disappointment that the LDP is having in governance, it could be toppled. But it's my estimation, and we can have some beers over in Kamakura, because I know you'll be joining us there, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person, Cam. I sense that there's this shift now, and this shift has occurred in several stages in Japan. You've got the kanno, the bureaucracy. You've got the members of the parliament. You've got the cabinet office, and you've got business like Keidan Ren and that sort of thing. You've got these 4 different areas of power. And I think over the last maybe 10 years, the power has been increasingly concentrated, first of all, to the LDP, and then more and more to the chief cabinet secretary and the cabinet office. And I think that because of this scandal with the LDP, it's really shaken the foundations. And this shift is going to be taken up not by the bureaucrats, but by businesses. I think businesses are going to exert a little bit more insistence and a little bit more management control over how the economy is run. And so, yes, getting them to buy in and providing, funds, or spending more money, or raising people's salaries, even without the central government telling them to do that. I think you're going to see this shift going away certainly from the LDP, but also not being focused on the bureaucrats, but more on big businesses. I sense that era is beginning to approach us, but we the tea leaves haven't quite settled down yet, so we're not sure. But there's Japan is just in a very tight situation. They don't have enough money to pay for the commitments that they've already made. This 5-year plan for making defense 2% of the gross domestic, the gross national product, it's carved in stone. It's not going to change whether Mr. Kishida is in power or not. So those funds that are earmarked, they still need to be paid for, and tobacco isn't going to cover it. And selling off, timberland, or maybe fishing ports, or some of the buildings that the Japanese government possesses, or some of the shareholdings of, some of these major companies that the Japanese government is required to hold 33% of, selling that off is not going to cover it. It's not going to spread, the piece of bread with enough peanut butter. So something has to happen there, or as a consequence of that, the distrust and the disaffected people and the anger that comes as a result of that will show itself in the way the public treats the administration. So difficult to say, Cam, but thanks very much for the question, and I hope we can respond to that more articulately in the coming weeks.
And if I can add something, and I think that the other day we were talking about it, how everybody in the government, in politics and out of politics nowadays, believes that Mr. Kishida is indecisive, and it takes forever to make a decision. But obviously, or not obviously, I wonder if the case is a little bit different, and he has just been waiting, for the right opportunity and the right moment to hit the opposition within his party so that he can solidify his position as a prime minister, and also his factions standing within the party as well. I would love to hear your comments on this, Timothy.
Yeah, I remember the conversation that we were having, Maya. It is true that the prime minister, being the fourth largest faction within the LDP, he needs to kowtow to the largest, by far the largest, the Abe faction, even though they have 5 people that are calling the shots, and he needs to answer 5 different telephone calls rather than 1. He still needs to, collaborate and, involve their issues in his decisions. And so maybe it's true that could hamper him being more forceful or more decisive. I think, on the other hand, though, it does kind of represent his personality and his career as the longest serving foreign minister in Japanese post-war history, that he is a little bit like that. He became prime minister as a consequence of that personality. He didn't have a whole lot of enemies. He didn't make decisive actions. He kind of went with the flow. He was friendly with everybody. And now that he's prime minister, those attributes don't particularly go in his favor. He talks a big talk. He's very articulate about painting the big picture. But when it comes down to, brass tacks, he's really skinny on those details. And it could be because he needs to kowtow to the largest political faction. But I think it's a little bit less than that. And I think in fact, people in the LDP are just sick and tired of him. They want him to move on. They don't like him. They blame part of this scandal on him. But he's been, once again, very adroit. Get rid of the Abe faction. Get those guys out. And let's attack them. And let's attack somebody else. But my faction is going to be, we'll deal with this one. Okay, a lot of flowery words. We'll deal with it. We'll address this when the Diet comes back into session. And we'll get through this together. And we'll think about revising the Political Control Funds Act. So stick with me, and we'll be doing it. So already the opposition party is being very critical of him, because they're saying, you're trying to do this, internally. This is a public issue. You need to involve the entire Diet. You need to involve us too in how this is being handled. So don't try and do it all on your own behind closed doors. We need to be involved too, and the public control violations you have been doing as the LDP, and we want you to, to change your tune on that. So involve us too. So a lot remains to be seen. I don't know how the prime minister is going to handle that, but it's not evident yet. But I think, once the Diet starts, it will be in full review for all of us to see, and there will be a lot of infighting, even among the opposition parties who are trying to score points and one comeuppance. But it's going to be a volatile period. And just to remind you, the Diet starts on the 26th. It's a Friday, and then I think they're doing that because they know that we have the Kamakura tour the following day on Saturday.
Indeed, yes, because we can talk about that first day of the Diet session.
Yes.
Or after the tour is over a mug of beer or two. Great.
And usually when they open the Diet, I mean, the emperor is there. The prime minister typically takes the opportunity to kind of have a State of the Union address. We're starting the Diet, 150 days. Let's be friends. Let's try and achieve these things. So it will be pretty eventful. Not a whole lot of Diet machinery will be put into place, but they will start the Diet. It's a big deal for the emperor to come in. That will be pretty much all that happens on that day, but we'll report on it.
We will, yes. And Rumiko, we have Rumiko with us in Clubhouse. Good morning, Rumiko.
Good morning, Timothy and Maya. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for everything, Timothy and Maya. And thanks for your little tip, Maya, for mentioning myself as an experienced finance girl.
Yes.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I'd like to add a little bit of comment that as for what I found after last year, 2023, because I started to prepare for my own tax filing That is not a must or compulsory for all the national people or residents in here.
Mhm.
But I was surprised to download, for example, the medical sort of like a tax deductible item 1. Okay.
Yes.
And normally NTA doesn't prepare the format, a year before or anything like that.
Mhm.
And this year, after the, finishing the year, right? Oshogatsu, then I downloaded and I found a very interesting thing. That is to say that before that, there was no cap or the maximum amount, the deductible for the medical related thing
Mhm.
for the tax filing. However, this year, or actually referring to the previous year, because we are filing for the last year, right? There is a cap of 2 million maximum
Oh,
that you
wow.
can
Yep.
deduct for the personal. The cap
Mm.
was not there in the last year. And on top of that, like normally this calculation goes like you have piled up all the receipts and stuff like that, right? And
Mhm.
come up with a certain amount. And that amount itself is more than 100K JPY, that is 10,000 yen. That should be deducted from the old piled up number. Then the rest is going to be tax deductible. That was the previous rule. But this year, I found the format that the cap is 2 million JPY, so not more over. But the deduction portion is not strictly to not stricted to 10,000 and 100K. Rather, if your tax income, whatever the entity, right, is 2 million or less, the deductible portion of the, the calculation of the medical fee is 5% multiplied by your tax income.
Mhm.
Okay. So, for example, let's say your tax income for the 2023 is 1 million JPY, right?
Mhm.
5% is how much? Like 5,000 or something. So, in that case, you deduct from, let's say, your deductible item total of the medical fee is like 100,000 yen. Then you deduct 5,000 yen after 100,000 yen. So 95,000 yen, 950K is going to be deducted from your tax income. So the rules are quite, different from the previous year. And why I wanted to bring up this example is because in the bureau or politics, it sounds like Prime Minister Kishida didn't do anything, just talk stuff and all that, right? So
Mhm.
I thought, okay, maybe like invoicing system, that kind of announcing are only affecting our nationals or kind of residents here, taxpayers. However, NTA itself has already like, setting up all those rules without
Yeah.
releasing it to everybody. And that means, in a nutshell, like all those like elder people who are spending a huge amount of the, medical fee cannot be deducted anymore. And
Yeah.
all those like low little income people still like get a little bit of deduction, but in a very strange manner. Because, well,
Mm.
come on, like taxable income 2 million JPY. It's just like kind of thing, not for everybody. So, well, I'm surprised that while they are talking like a drama on the TV or news or whatever, as a matter of fact, NTA has been already conducted without saying anything. And
Mm.
after the year passed, that we needed to deal with this thing as a sort of like a settled rule.
Mm.
And
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
So we don't want to get lost in the weeds, but at the policy level, I think the Kishida administration has realized we're going to increase the defense spending. We're going to give the Fisheries Association money. We're going to spend money here and there and everywhere, and people aren't having enough money. So let's give people money if they have 2 or more kids, and let's pay for free education for everybody. And if you have 3 kids, they all get free university education. So all of these things are going on. And I think, the finance minister, Mr. Suzuki, he's having a hard time. And so what they've done is they've said, let's kick over every stone. Let's create some new thing. So, these people that don't provide receipts and we're not able to tax them, the kind of underground or the cash economy, let's get them. Let's have this system where now, in order for transaction business and providing services or products, you must have a receipt number, and let's implement that, and then we can tax it. So they've done that, and they've also done this thing with the medical expenses too. So the tax deduction has decreased, and so now if it's below that amount, then you need to pay the taxes on that, and that's a big portion. If you think about the people who are sick or ill or that need facilitation from the medical system, which is, it's a national system here, that's a huge amount of people. So any small tweak and any kind of rock they can kick over where they can get additional tax accounting, that's what's happening. And the reason why it's going on kind of surreptitiously or kind of subterranean is because the prime minister said, I'm not going to increase taxes, like read my lips, no new taxes. Well, that's a lie. It's occurring, but it's occurring in a way that it doesn't really hit everybody. If you're, providing your tax accounting as you've been outlining to us, Rumiko, you're going to notice it, but it doesn't really hit the press or make a whole lot of news. But it does, inflate the amount of money that's going into the tax accounting. They've got to do something. So a lot of these little tricks, a lot of these kind of sleight of hands, you can anticipate happening. But thanks, you've identified a good one, because, with the aging population and the fact that it's a national health system that's observed here, yeah, it's a pocket of a nice piece of change if you can get it and nobody complains about it.
Rumiko, you're on mute. We cannot hear you if you're saying anything.
Sure, Timothy. And yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Timothy, for your very, insightful perspective. Exactly. That's the whole point. They talk about the benefits now, and like at the end of the day, popping up with all those, already confirmed must follow rules.
Yeah. We already decided. You guys weren't watching. We already decided. Yeah.
Exactly. Without telling all the nationals and the residents here. And that's the sort of like a tricky part. And
well, no, the fact is, not everybody's watching this show. We did report on that, and we were suggesting that these are the kinds of things that are happening. These are the amount of monies that they're paying for, and what's happening here. There was a lot of not unclarity. It's just a lot of non-information. Not things were coming up. But when it does come up, we report it here, and we've kind of predicted that this is the path it's going to go on, and it's not going to stop.
Exactly. That's why I truly appreciate your briefing and together with Maya's hosting. And this is like, that is how it works here. And maybe a lot of people might think Japanese fiscal year starts from April, following the schools and all. However, when it comes to taxation, spot on calendar year basis, and they only open for any kind of like freelance registration and all that. Deadline is 15th of March every year. So once you miss that, then you can't get the benefits of the reporting the old books to the national tax funds or whatever. So the kind of tricky like calendar playing around and stuff like that is going on. So that's the reason we have to be watch out. Somebody like Timothy or Maya or whoever knows things, because there are plenty of information, but sometimes they fake or just a rumor without having any concrete groundings or anything like that. That's why nowadays information is a lot together with the SNS and all. So maybe you get hundreds or millions of the information, but what is real? That is a key point. Who you know.
No.
At the end of the day, we are people. We are good humans, and there are bad human beings too. So watch out, babies. And we gotta stay together to co-independently help each other. And I truly hope that. And once again, my conclusion is true appreciation to Mr. Timothy Langley and host Maya Matoga-san. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rumiko, and thank you very much for joining. You know, these kinds of things have been a part of the Japanese kind of publicity world for the last 10 years, certainly 10 years. And little by little, people are losing their faith and their trust in what's going on NHK, what the TV is saying. People are reduced. I mean, it's happening everywhere in the world. And it's programs like this where people come for the solid information, unblemished, you know, unbiased, you know, give it to me straight so that I can make my own decision. And we are hoping to kind of fill that vacuum. We just focus on Japanese politics. It's very narrow, but as the audience has taught us, you know, it's very broad. We've got an audience that spans the globe, and there are a lot of Japan hands and a lot of people that aspire to have that kind of facilitation and knowledge of what's going on in Japan. And I think that's one of the reasons why this the YCAPS affiliation and the walk to Kamakura and last week or last month in Odawara, it's so important because we're building this cadre of people who are really in tune with what's going on and who are committed to following the truth and defining what is actually going on in spite of the noise that's going on elsewhere. So thanks very much for your comment and your analysis.
Yeah, thank you, Rumiko. And I would like to say also that if you keep informed about what is going on and you know for sure, you know, the details and public policies and well, what you can expect, this definitely will help your business decisions in the immediate future, or even, you know, the strategic planning for your business in the not so distant future as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much, Rumiko, for sharing this with us. We appreciate you coming up on stage and talking about this because I think there is some information out there, but it's difficult for people who are not following closely these policies to find it and actually to read about it. So we appreciate your input. And then we have a comment. What's that? Okay, we have a comment on YouTube, and it is about Daihatsu. So the question actually is, what happened to the Daihatsu scandal? It suddenly disappeared. Why does this vanish while others linger, like the used car scandal? But we talked about this, Timothy, you talked about this in detail. So I believe that Mr. Kumata, if you have time, please go back maybe around the 30th minute of this session. You will actually be able to learn more about what happened with the scandal there. Yes.
Can I touch on this just a little bit? So
sure.
You're absolutely right. Who is this?
Mr. Yes. Mr.
Thanks for joining and thanks for putting in a comment. You're absolutely right. Big Motor is still in the news. It's still being investigated. It's still being lambasted within Bunshun, for example, is getting a lot of mileage out of that. And there is a lot to be investigating there. There seems to be a lot of really dirty business that's going on there. With Daihatsu, it's a little bit different. And if you've watched the video that we did, about 2 months ago, Maya, about the Japanese automobile industry and moving from the internal combustion to the EV, the electric vehicle, and how that's going to shape and impact the Japanese economy. The Japanese economy, as if you saw that video, is dominated by the automobile industry, automobile and automobile parts. And so Daihatsu is affiliate. I mean, it's a subsidiary, 100% owned, maybe not 100%, but it is a subsidiary of Toyota. And so Toyota is the crowning jewel. Everybody in METI loves Toyota. The chairman of the Keidan Ren is the Toyota chairman. And it just goes on. And I mean, Daihatsu, 8,000 supplier companies, you know, so it's a big, huge impact to the economy and to the working base and to the kind of definition of Japanese prowess. And so the Japanese love to talk about the automobile industry, but it's kind of a black eye, you know, they made some mistakes. Maybe the requirements and the certifications for these airbags, maybe it's tweaked a little bit too high, because these guys have been doing it for more than 10 years making these violations, and we're only finding out. I don't know if you're only finding out about it now. They've got some whistleblowers in Daihatsu that have been reporting this. The METI has been collecting this information and finally launching on it now. I don't know why. There's probably some political reason there, but there are also people who are saying, hey, back off. You know, this is not good for business. It's not good for our brand. Focus on big motors. That's okay, because that's a company that actually did some really bad violations and consumers were hurt by that. But for the airbags, it's just, you know, it's a minor thing, and we need to protect Toyota, and this is one of our engines of growth. And so back off, buddy. I think there's a little bit of that going on there too, but it's a great observation of yours.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you very much indeed. And yes,
sorry,
Yes.
may I ask for a comment from Timothy a bit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Timothy, you know that when it comes to Emperor of Toyota, right? The prince of the Toyota Emperor started a company named Uvon, right? And the Uvon city is around that Toyota headquarter area. And that is not so much related to Daihatsu or Toyota itself. It's like a, you know, city creation, you know, kind of concept.
Yep.
Do you
Great
know
idea.
about it? Yes. Because like, you know, as for the deal matters, I have got several contacts, you know, from the previous year or even 2 years ago or something still coming up, and just want to know what is the relations between the
Sorry.
automotive. Yeah.
What's the question?
Oh, okay, so I'm not quite sure about the position of the Uvon city or Uvon company related to Toyota, because like the chairman or the CEO of the Uvon city is like a son of the Toyota guy, right? So that is not quite precisely about the automotive industry in my view, but I'd like to invite your views because
Okay.
I'm confused.
Sorry, may I jump it? Can I answer that question, Rumiko? I know that you want to hear Timothy, but before that,
sure, definitely.
Yes, because it's about business and also once again about policies that are going to happen quite soon here. And what Toyota is doing with the Woven City, and also Honda has a similar project, even though it is not exactly the same. So basically, businesses are moving from monozukuri to services. And Toyota is moving from that field of monozukuri car production to providing whole packages of services and systems. Mobility, and that is mobility as a service. So and it is happening here in Japan, it is happening in other countries as well. And so the Woven City is basically the concept that is the proof of concept, I believe they're trying to develop, so that eventually the companies are not, I mean the car producers are not going to disappear. They'll just have to transition from one type of business to another. Timothy, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. Actually, I was going to punt to you because of this conversation, and I think you've even had a briefing on your Wednesday morning program about Toyota going from, you know, making products to going into services, and this project, this digital city that they're creating. You've got to understand that the Japanese are really good at certain things, and one of those things that they're really good at is taking ideas from all over the globe, bringing them into Japan, investing in them, polishing them up, making them bigger and better and more beautiful and maybe less expensive, I don't know, and then exporting that. So you've got this city that's being built in Saudi Arabia now, Nome, right?
Yes.
So I don't know, is it several miles long, and it's kind of rectangular, and it's a living, breathing city right in the middle of the desert. And this city is going to be built. It is being built right now, but it's not being built by the Saudis. The Saudis have money. They don't have workers that are invested in that. They buy the technology from someplace else. And Toyota wants to be at the forefront. So this is, like Maya said, it is like a trial facility. And they've got like 20 or 25 companies that are invested in this, building things, the card readers and the monitors, and you don't carry cash with you, and you don't have to the public transportation is already provided there, to refine these systems and this software so that they can export that. And I think that it is the wave of the future. It's a really incredibly important exercise that Toyota and Honda and some of the mobility providers are going through right now. And it is the wave of the future. So it's something that you should watch. And I think it's a long-term project, but they're already the broken soil in Saudi Arabia for this project, and I'm sure it's something that people have already heard of. But when you get down to how it's being done, you've got people from Malaysia and the Philippines. It's not Saudis that are digging ditches or building this. And when it comes time to put in the machinery, it's not machinery that is homegrown in Saudi Arabia. Give me a break. It is, the best and the brightest from all over the world being poured into this new city. So it's really very exciting and dynamic. So very much looking forward to how that develops.
Yes, and I think we also need to recognize the business opportunities here for the companies who sell those systems, because we also had a talk, I think, on LinkedIn about Shinkansen, and that Shinkansen is not just a train on rails, it's a whole system. So I believe that companies like Toyota, once they develop these systems, they will be selling packages. And this is, once again, a way for them to export, their product. Yes, indeed. And Timothy, as you said, this is the way of the future until something newer comes up. And, all the governments and big businesses, they jump on the new thing. Yeah. Well, Rumiko, I hope that this answers your question. But
yes, definitely. Together with your comments and insightful thing, Maya, and the additional further elaboration of Timothy. What a lovely teamwork. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Rumiko, because you're becoming gradually part of the team,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. Well, thank you very much indeed. It looks like we have exhausted the questions, and Timothy, you can be freed and, go around your day. So to everybody who stayed with us then on all the platforms, we are live streaming. Thank you very much for tuning in and for your questions, for your comments, for your interest in general. If you have questions and you want to share your thoughts with us, you can do that directly on LinkedIn by messaging us, or you can share your thoughts with us in Clubhouse as well, YouTube as well. Please feel free to do that. We appreciate every interaction and every input, because we are trying to improve actually our delivery and to make it even more useful for you. And hopefully we'll be able to do that as well. So that's all for today. Timothy, a few words before you sign off.
The only words I'd like to leave with the audience is, once again, just leave some sort of fingerprint that you're with us, that you appreciate it, that you've joined us, that you don't like it, or you like it, whatever. We are responsive to criticisms, as long as they're not directed at me. So please, we're building a community here of people who are interested in what's going on in Japan and Japanese politics and culture and geopolitics. So please continue to join us. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I get long-winded and talk too much, but I really appreciate the questions and the opportunity to discuss with you too. So thank you very much. And thank you, Maya, for hosting.
You're welcome. Thank you for not running away. So you have been really very patient and gamanzuyoi, if that is the same thing. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much. We'll be here once again on Wednesday at 8 o'clock talking about cybersecurity with Joshua Leon. Yes, Joshua. And on Sunday next week, Sunday 8:20, once again with Timothy. And then Wednesday, when Miles Delphin will tell us how we can help people in disaster hit areas and work closer with governments. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Maya.
And enjoy your week.
Everybody.
Thank you.
See you next week.